Can the West Virginia Mountaineers get off the Big 12 schneid and get a win in conference play? It's not going to be easy as they travel to Houston to take on the 22nd ranked and 7-1 Houston Cougars, who still have everything in front of them and are vying for a college football playoff spot. Can the Mountaineers get it done? Well, my co-host Jonathan and I are going to talk about that in the 49th episode of the Gold and Blue Breakdown Show. We're going to have that conversation right now. What is up, and welcome to Gold and Blue Breakdown episode 49, brought to you by the fine folks at Appalachia Digital, where you can go get your website designed or get your website found easier on Google. They are the folks who designed WVSportsChat.com, the site where Jonathan and I do some writing along with some other folks. Jonathan, what's up, man?
What's going on, Couz? Yeah, another episode. And I certainly didn't have the currently ranked Houston Cougars on my bingo card when we started the season. But hey, you know what? Congrats to them and the program and turn around. And hey, I know we're going to recap TCU, Couz, but I'm actually excited to get back on the field. I felt like there was a lot that could be built on from last weekend despite losing. And I know you and I both agree we don't love moral victories, but in a season like we're having right now, you have to pretty much grab a hold of anything you can get your hands on. So excited to see the guys back out on the field Saturday. An early kick for Houston.
Yeah, 11. It'll be
11
a.m. for them. 12 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Central on FS1. So yeah, maybe that'll work a little bit to West Virginia's advantage, but we'll see.
Yeah.
As far as the TCU game, let's go and recap that real quick. What were your takeaways from that game?
Yeah, so first off, I just want to say congratulations to Mountaineer Nation for showing up. You know what? I everything I saw, I wasn't there, but everything I saw, the crowd was amazing. They looked great, even through some frustration. It looks like a lot of them stayed. And so the whole LED, cold rush, the wristband thing, brilliant idea from the university. So, hey, first off, I just want to say that they showed up. Second off, again, we're not into moral victories, Couz, but I think you're looking for things to grab a hold of. You're looking for some positives and you're looking for some momentum. It was nice to see the defense step back up and kind of rejuvenize themselves. They were called out by Zach Alley. They were called out by Rich Rodriguez, and they stepped up to the plate. It was nice to see Scotty Fox making history, right? Most quarterback yards thrown by a true freshman. That was nice to see, and it was nice to get Cam Vaughn back in the action. So a lot of positives. Actually felt like you were really close to maybe pulling that one out. Didn't go your favor. But it was nice to see a game where you were in it late in the fourth quarter, and so take what we can from it. A lot to build on, if you ask me.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, they've already heard my spiel on it. I won't, spend too much time. But yeah, really liked what we saw to Scotty Fox. I do want to. TCU's pass defense is not elite by any means, but they're formidable. They are not a bad football team. They obviously are 6-2 on the year, so that tells you, that speaks for itself. And they do have NFL caliber players on that defense, especially on the back end. So, he was able to do what he did against some NFL caliber players. So you can't take that away from him. And hopefully they can build on it. They've struggled on the road though, which makes this week a little more concerning. So let's go ahead and dive into that. For those of you who are new around here, what we always do is we start off with 3 keys to the game. Then we go with 2 position battles, a key Mountaineer player to watch, and then we finish it up with our score predictions. So go ahead and jump in, Jonathan. What is your first key to the game for the Mountaineers in this one?
Because I'm going to continue to beat this drum. It's something that I've done several times this season, and I'm going to continue to do it. And again, we've even heard Rich Rodriguez talk about this ad nauseum over and can West Virginia continue to pile on with the momentum, and which West Virginia team's going to show up? I mean, is it going to be the offense that we saw versus UCF that really struggled? Or is it the one that we saw against TCU where there were a little bit of flashes? Are we going to get the defense that showed up last week against TCU that played inspired?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we going to get the one that gave up 45 to Central Florida, 38 to BYU, 48 to Utah, 41, I think it was, to Kansas? Like, are we going to get the inspired football team? Or are we going to get the team that we believe, and even to a certain degree, the coaching staff felt like kind of packed it in a little bit against UCF prior to that? So, when you have to ask yourself these questions repeatedly, Couz, which team's going to show up, that's generally a team that is reflective of a 2-6 record and 0-5 in conference play. And that's exactly what West Virginia is, and that's exactly what we're asking. But for me, is first off, which West Virginia team actually shows up in Houston? Because if it's the team that showed up last week, call me crazy, but I actually think West Virginia could have a sneaky decent chance in this one. But if it's a team that showed up against UCF the week prior, it could be over really before it even gets started.
Yeah. Yeah, well said. I agree with that. Now, the one thing that I do have hope, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought I heard Rich Rod say in a press conference that, the guys get their revenue share money based on how they play.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken. I think somebody asked him about that. He does have an earned success model. So it's possible that there could be money riding on their performances, right? Maybe that keeps them motivated.
I hope. It should.
It should, right? I mean, you and I at our daily jobs, we have to perform, right?
Yep.
So, and then you've got a lot of these guys, some of them at least, probably want to try to play on Sundays. There are probably a few that could.
Mm-hmm.
You want those guys, obviously, they have something to play for, right? And then the younger guys, hey, they want to put something on film for next year, whether they're coming back to West Virginia or going to the portal. So you would think there would be plenty to play for. So hopefully they come out ready to go, and we don't see another UCF type performance from the team as far as lack of effort. My first key is West Virginia's defense needs to get after Connor Wigman, and when you look at his numbers, Jonathan, he's a very accurate quarterback overall. He has over 60% completion percentage on the year, but his completion percentage goes way down when he is not throwing to the middle of the field and when he's pressured, right? So if West Virginia can get him on the run, like they did a pretty decent job of that last week against Josh Hoover, held him to 242 yards.
Yeah,
Jonathan, he's leading the nation in passing yards. I don't know if you know that or not. Mm-hmm. Josh Hoover is leading the country in passing yards.
Yep.
And they held him to 242 yards last week. If they can have a performance like that against Wigman, I really think that gives this West Virginia team a chance to win the game. Because he's not necessarily he can scramble, he can run the ball, but he's not a quarterback that wants to, he wants to throw from the pocket, and he wants to be able to hit the center of the field. 40% of his attempts are in the center of the field. 30% of those are within 0 to 9 yards. We'll get to in a minute why that is, but you want to flush him out and preferably flush him to the right flush him to the left because he does not like to throw the ball to the left side of the field. And the majority of his turnover-worthy plays are when he tries to throw it to the left side of the field. So if you can flush him to the left somehow, get him off his mark, force him to try to go left, I really like this team's chances of forcing him into some turnovers potentially. So put pressure on Connor Wegman, get him out of the pocket, make him make plays on the run. That's what I like to see him try to do.
Yeah, I agree, Couz, and we'll discuss probably a little bit later about the West Virginia defense, but again, was a little bit more inspired. They were able to get after Hoover last week. A couple sacks is something they haven't done yet in Big 12. If I'm correct on this, I didn't think West Virginia had a sack during Big 12 competition. And were able to until last week they were to get to Hoover twice. And we talked about that last week. Hoover was pretty good typically over the course of the season under pressure. And I thought West Virginia did a really good job there. And crazy enough, that was without
Jamori Robinson.
And speaking of earning your pay, it kind of makes you wonder after being called out, essentially, this past week, where's his head at? Is he going to be eager to prove? And so I completely agree with you. Wigman's going to be somebody that's going to be able to pick you apart if you're not careful. Yeah. And so, again, as we started the show, we're a little bit inspired just off what we saw last week against Hoover, and hopeful that can carry over into this week.
Yep. Now he has only thrown 2 picks this year, so it's not like he's a turnover machine or anything like that. But the chances are there if you can get him out of the pocket. And this team Houston does not do a very good job pass blocking, Jonathan. Their pass blocking grade is in the 60s. So yeah, that's West Virginia's opportunity right there to try to get pressure on him, make some, their defensive line at times, like last week, Devin Grant had himself a day, had 7 quarterback pressures and a sack.
Yeah.
So if he can repeat that performance and get help from some of his interior guys, Eddie V and Eddie Kelly and some of the other guys, they could have a good day. It could be a really good day for that defense.
Yep.
So what's your second key?
So my second key is I think West Virginia, the defense, and it kind of goes hand in hand with what you were talking about, actually have to stop the tight end from Houston. I will apologize for a second. The last name, it's Tanner Koziol.
Koziol. I think it's Koziol.
I think it's Koziol as well. It's a little confusing. I actually, believe it or not, looked that up a couple times, and then you start to have to say it. I don't envy somebody like Tony Caridi that has to do this week in and week out. Either way, we could just call him the tight end who leads the FBS in a lot of categories. Couz, how about these numbers, okay? Leads all FBS tight ends with 43 receptions. His 450 receiving yards, second among FBS tight ends, and second among Big 12, actually, and has recorded multiple receptions in 20 consecutive games. It tells me they throw the football to him a lot, and he makes a lot of catches. Here's one thing I thought was really interesting when I was looking at some numbers on him, because he's not wide open whenever they throw it to him.
Don't have to be. He's born open.
He's born open, but here's the pretty interesting part about it. He's hauled in 19 contested catches this season, the most among tight ends nationally. Here's what almost 80% contested catch rate. Yes, they track that. So almost 80% of his 43 catches on the year were contested, and that is 7 percentage points higher than the second place tight end in the country. So it really doesn't matter if he's not wide open. It doesn't matter if he's in double or even triple coverage. About 80% of the time he catches the football. And so Connor Wigman loves to throw that to him as 43 catches. At all times, West Virginia is going to have to know where he is. And so I'm really curious to see where they go defensively with that. I'm sure Zach Alley's probably still wide awake trying to figure that out. But you might want to put a couple men on him because, like I said, 80% of the time he catches the ball, even if he's contested.
Yeah, and earlier I mentioned I don't want to get too far ahead of myself because I'm actually going to touch on him later. But I mentioned that Wigman likes to throw that 0 to 9 yards, right? Well, now you know why. Look who he's throwing it to in that 0. And Koziol's averaging 10.5 yards per reception.
Yeah.
He's moved. So what? He's going to the sticks, turning around, catching the ball. And now he does have a lot of yards after the catch too. Don't get me wrong, but I mean when you're 6'7", you're born open, like I said. And West Virginia doesn't have anybody 6'7" to defend this guy, so it's going to be a tough challenge for them, man. It'll be interesting to see how they, like you said, how they do it. I hope they don't do what we saw West Virginia doing. I don't remember what tight end it was, but they had their 5'9" safety on the tight end a few times in previous years, which absolutely drove me bananas. Let's hope that don't happen again. Because if you put 5'9" Darian Lewis, who's a good football player, on a 6'7" tight end, it's probably not going to end well.
Be a long day. It's going to be a long day.
At least put somebody that's about 6'2" or 6'3" on the guy, right?
Yep.
But yeah, it's I was going to look up his PFF grades here. I don't have them in front of me, but nonetheless, you don't really need to. He's a good football player, 6'7", 48 catches or 43 catches. That's where he's going to be looking to throw the football. Now, my second key is special teams. I actually think West Virginia has a shot here their special teams hasn't been anything to write home about this year, meaning West Virginia. But neither has Houston's. Now, they do have a really good kicker, so they don't miss kicks. But the rest of their special teams, they are 92nd in the country in kickoff return yards, 100th in the country in net punt yards, and 101st in the country in punt return yards. So their special teams is not necessarily winning them football games right now. And West Virginia's isn't either, but West Virginia actually ranks ahead of Houston in most of those categories, if not all of them. So West Virginia could potentially win the field position battle here as long as they take care of the football. And special teams could actually be a benefactor in this game for West Virginia, where in past games it's kind of, I felt like, hurt them or at least not been a factor, right? It's been kind of a non-factor this year, in my opinion. But it could be a factor here if West Virginia is able to make some plays on special teams. So I think special teams is the second key to this game. Oliver Straw is going to have to punt the ball well. Coverage teams are going to have to cover well. And hopefully, they can take advantage of some miscues or some bad punts, whatever, on the Houston side. But I will say this, though. You also have to be careful because they've also blocked three kicks and a punt this year. So there are some bright spots for them on the special team side, and that is blocking kicks.
Yeah.
So you've got to be alert of that and make sure that don't happen in this game. So special teams to me is going to be a key. West Virginia's got to win the special teams battle.
I agree, and we even spoke last week. When you are, again, looking for anything, when the defense seems tired and the offense continues to struggle and you're just looking for anything to hang your hat on, sometimes it's something in special teams that can make the difference, or turnovers. And so I completely agree with you. It's going to be those little things. If West Virginia, especially with the season they've had, Couz is going to roll into Houston and get a win, they don't necessarily have to win it in special teams, but I don't think they can lose it there. Right. So
correct.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
You need to at least try to, hopefully you can at least be neutral, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Just can't lose it. Cannot lose it.
Especially on the road.
Correct.
So what's key number 3 for you?
Key number 3 for me is I think West Virginia has to find some sort of run game. The problem is Houston's not necessarily the football team you want to find a run game against. But I think if Houston just sits back and pins their ears back and just waits on Scotty Fox to throw the football, I think Fox is going to revert back to some of the struggles that he's had earlier in the year. And so somehow, some way, and I don't know, Rich Rodriguez joked we might see Curtis Jones Jr. back there running the football. Who knows? Houston's pretty good defensively, Couz, and I know you're going to talk about this. I know you're really high on their defense, but they're allowing just 18 points per game. It's the 21st fewest in FBS this year. I think 35th or 36th in total defense, 38th in rushing defense. And it's an area where West Virginia has struggled. Only 41 yards last week against TCU. And I guess it was just meant to be. I want to read this off to you. Difficulties in reading names. Defensive lineman Khalil Lofau, not quite sure, an 84 run defensive grade, 7th nationally. And Carlos Allen's 81 is 13th nationally in interior defensive lineman. They've got 2 dudes up front that are going to stop the run. And so, again, it's not a good matchup for West Virginia, but it's almost a matchup that you're just going to have to make work somehow. Because if you just run for 41 yards this week, I think Houston's going to be a little bit more prepared for Scotty Fox in the passing game than TCU was. And if you want any resemblance of an opportunity to win this game, you've got to run. You don't have to run for 150, 200 yards, but I think you've got to get at least double your effort and get close to 100, or at least be respectable there to have a shot.
Yeah, you can't be one-dimensional against a defense this talented.
Nope.
I totally agree with that. And, I think they're 52nd in pass defense, but that's still top half of the country. Maybe top third of the country, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like they're a sieve back there. They're still pretty darn good. And when you look at their coverage grade, John, their coverage grade is 90.3.
Yeah.
So, and then you were talking about their run defense grade, 90.4.
Yeah,
So
they're good.
not a ton of room, not a ton of weaknesses on that side of the football.
Yeah.
So this game is lining up to be, and we'll get to our score predictions later, but it's lining up to be a potentially a low scoring game and a dogfight.
Yep.
You know, but West Virginia's, the Curtis Jones thing, I can't help but wonder if Coach Rod, because Coach Rod is typically not one that tips his hand on stuff. So I'm wondering if he threw that out there just to give Houston something to prepare for, and he's not actually going to do it. I actually like the idea, to be honest, because Curtis, you look him up, man. He was a over 2,000-yard career rusher in high school.
Yeah.
One of the best players in the state of West Virginia coming out of high school, and on both offensively and defensively. Ended up going the defensive route, was recruited as a defender, but he's 6'2", 6'3", 220 pounds.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds you of somebody we had a couple years ago, doesn't it?
It does, and I think
C.J. Donaldson.
Yeah, and I think that one thing that we really were excited about West Virginia's running attack this year before the season was just how diverse that the actual running back room was, right? Jaheim White was a little bit of combination of speed and power. Ty Edwards was supposed to be your power back, and then somebody like a Bowers and a Hubbard were supposed to give you that burst of speed. The problem now is you've got two very inexperienced running backs in Hubbard and Bowers, and Clay Ash to a certain extent, but Bowers and Hubbard are essentially the same runner. They don't really offer you any different dimensions, and so it allows the defense just to kind of sit back. And I just don't think you can run for 40 yards again this week, even though the task is tall, and feel like you're excited about your chances of rolling into Houston and getting a win.
Agreed. Yeah, and I don't know what's going on with Tyler Jacklich. I guess he's just not ready. They brought him in to be a big back too, but
yeah, and I think you saw him. What week was it, Couz? A couple weeks ago, I think you saw him a little bit. And if I'm not mistaken, it was an immediate fumble and a pretty big opportunity, and you really hadn't seen much since. So,
yeah,
take that for what it's worth.
Yep. All right, my third key is run the football successfully. Believe it or not, and I've got Curtis Jones down here as a bullet point, because I think there's an opportunity there. Maybe do we have another Ty Edwards moment at Pitt? You know what I mean? Do we have that surprise guy who nobody saw coming, who bursts on the scene, or like we saw with C.J. Donaldson against, ironically, Pitt back in 2022, right, where he bursts on the scene, 7 carries, 125 yards, right?
Yeah.
I don't think we'll see that necessarily, but, man, if we can just get somebody who can get past the line of scrimmage and get 4 or 5 yards a clip, and get first downs on 3rd and 4th and short, it'll be progress, right? And that will keep the defense from being able to load the box on you and keep them a little bit more honest, and maybe even open up some more space in the middle of the field for Fox to make some throws, maybe. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We talked earlier about them not being one-dimensional. Well, if you don't run the football, they're just going to pin their ears back and go after him. Because this defense, man, we talked about all their defensive accolades. They also happen to be, let me see, I got it wrote down here where they are in sacks. I thought I did. Nope, I didn't write it down. But anyway, they're 25th in the country in sacks. So
yeah, and Couz, I'll say too as well, if that's not enough, Houston has a cornerback, Latrell McCutcheon. He was an 85.6 coverage graded man against Arizona State. That's the best in FBS. So if they just have an opportunity to sit back and wait on him to throw the football, it's going to be. It's just not. It's not going to work. Yeah. So you have to be able to run the football.
Agreed. All right, man. What do you got? Well, actually, we need to switch over to our next category. I was about ready to ask you what your next key was, but you're done, aren't you?
There's a lot of them. We can just.
Next, we're going to get to our position battles, but before we do, I got to do a quick commercial break. We'll be right back. Your season, your shot. The NFL season is rolling, and every touchdown can bring you closer to a payout with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. From first touchdown scorer to anytime TD props or the thrill of live in-game betting, every snap is loaded with opportunity. New customers, this one is for you. Bet just $5 and get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Plus, score over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code COUZ. That's code COUZ to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you place your first $5 bet. Plus, over $200 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. In partnership with DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort, Kansas. 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Fees may apply in Illinois, void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 7 days after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/promos. NFL Sunday Ticket offer for new subscribers only and auto renews until canceled. Digital games and commercial use excluded. Restrictions apply. Additional NFL Sunday Ticket terms at youtube.com/go/NFL Sunday Ticket/terms. Limited time offer. All right. Thank you for being patient. Also want to remind you about Appalachia Digital, the folks who design our website over at wvsportschat.com. If you want a new website, check them out. Go to appalachiadigital.com/Couz. Let them know I sent you. They can upgrade your current site if you already have a site, or if you want to get your site found easier on Google, they can do that too. They do a great job. Go check them out, appalachiadigital.com/Couz. All right, Jonathan, let's go ahead and jump into our two position battles to watch. What's your first one?
Yeah, I'll be kind of quick with this one, Couz, because actually you touched on it earlier, and I thought you did a pretty good job, and that's the West Virginia defense has to be able to – the defensive line specifically has to put pressure on Connor Wigman. I don't think it was any strange correlation that West Virginia as a defensive unit played pretty well, especially on the back end last week. And it just happened to come at the time where West Virginia was able to put some pressure on Hoover. You didn't have cornerbacks and secondary help for West Virginia trying to cover for 8 to 10 seconds. And so they looked pretty good because they weren't having to be out there forever. Yeah. And so it kind of goes hand in hand. It's funny how that works. And so I'll be anxious to see if you can continue to get that pressure. Eddie V played really good. Eddie Kelly played pretty well. You saw Nate Gabriel last week step up. As you mentioned, Devin Grant had a really nice, probably his best game of the season. It was nice to see him. He was really energetic. And if by chance Jamori Robinson does come back this week, inspired and plays ready football, it'd be good to see this West Virginia defensive line really put pressure on Houston, because in order for West Virginia, and you talked about this, Wigman doesn't just turn the ball over. And so West Virginia has to generate some nervousness out of him. And so need to see them be in the backfield a little bit more than they had previously before last week.
Yeah, I agree. And speaking of that, I'm glad you brought that up again, because I wanted a moment, because I did look up their pass blocking grade earlier that I didn't have in front of me when I was talking about it. It's 36.6 is their pass blocking grade on the season. That's Houston as a team. So there's an opportunity there. And they're 57th in the country in sacks allowed.
Wow.
So they're not, it's about middle of the pack, right? So they're not terrible at it, but they're also not great at it either.
Yeah.
Now some of that's on Wigman's a pretty athletic guy, so he can move, get away from trouble too. So take that for what it's worth. But I think there's an opportunity here, I guess is my point.
Yeah.
Did you have something you wanted to interject there?
No, you just said Houston was 36.6 on offensive line. And I was just
pass blocking as a whole, yes.
Pass blocking as a whole. Just kind of was curious what West Virginia was. You don't have to look that
67.4.
Oh, okay.
Pass blocking has not really been West Virginia's biggest problem. It's been run blocking.
Yeah. I'm just curious what they were.
67.4 is not elite by any stretch, but it's
respectable. Yeah.
Yeah, it's above average.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and go to my first position battle to watch, which I kind of flipped it. And I hated to do this because I know we've talked about this ad nauseum, but I've got the WVU O-line against Houston's D-line, because this D-line is the strength of this football team.
Yeah.
Okay. I talked about the run defense grade earlier. It was in the 90s, right?
Yeah.
90.4 as a team. And you mentioned the two of their studs they got up front. West Virginia has got to be able to at least be decent, okay? West Virginia's run block grade right now, 47.5. Not only slightly better than Houston's pass block grade, right? So you've got to be able to create some creases for some of these backs, man. You also have to protect Fox. You got a true freshman quarterback. They're going to be coming after him. They're going to try to light him up. That's what you do when you got a true freshman back there, right? Especially one you saw wearing a knee brace at the end of last week's game.
Oh,
you know what I mean? They're going to come after him. I mean, that's if any good defensive coordinator is going to try to take advantage of that. So you got to protect him. It's going to be hard to do against that good defensive front, but West Virginia's O-line has got to step up and play their best football of the season in this game for West Virginia to have any inkling of a chance to win.
Yeah.
They've got to play at least average football, especially in the run blocking side of things.
Yeah, because Couz, you got to think that Houston saw on film last week for West Virginia that Fox wanted to get that ball out pretty quick to Cam Vaughn.
Correct.
And the idea there was to get that ball, and it was a couple of things. Number one, you have to almost pretty much get it out early with the offensive line struggles, but two, you wanted to get that ball out and get Cam Vaughn early in space.
And you don't want your young quarterback having to think too much.
Correct.
Going through too many reads, yeah.
And so credit to Rich Rodriguez, every bit of that made a lot of sense. The problem's going to be is that's on film now. And if you're struggling to run the football, and Houston, is going to sit back and study that. So you can believe they're liable to play a lot of press coverage man-to-man early on and to kind of test those waters. And so you're going to have to run the football to open that up. We've talked about that. But I also think West Virginia's going to have – this really wasn't a point of mine, but West Virginia's going to have to take some shots downfield. We saw that last week with Weimer. I think West Virginia's going to have to look into doing that again. Maybe it's a buoy in the slot, because if West Virginia just wants to do quick, short routes to get Cam Vaughn the football in space, while I understand it, if you can't run the football effectively, I got a feeling Houston's going to take that away pretty quick.
Yep. Agree. What's your second one?
My second one is something that we've actually both kind of talked about, but I'll just maybe put the icing on it a little bit, and that is somehow, some way contain Connor Wigman. And again, we're just kind of repeating ourselves a little bit. But I thought it was pretty interesting. If everybody knows the season that Wigman's having right now, but I don't necessarily know that they know the backstory about him. And I thought it was pretty interesting because he was a former 5-star quarterback from Texas A&M. With all due respect to Jalen Henderson, it wasn't somebody that was just in the quarterback room and played sparingly. Wigman played a lot of football, Couz. He spent 3 seasons with the Aggies, started 13 of 15 games, threw for almost 2,700 yards and 19 touchdowns. To your point earlier, he was 13-0 touchdown to interception ratio over his first 6 college games. That's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
And so this isn't somebody that has just happened to roll into Houston and was a former 5-star, but he didn't really pan out, and all of a sudden he's struck lightning in a bottle. He's been there, done that, and he's been pretty successful at Texas A&M. And so West Virginia somehow – now, the encouraging news is we felt this way, didn't we, last week against Josh Hoover. I even said, and I think you might have agreed with me, on paper it was a terrible matchup for West Virginia. I feel the exact same way this week. I was encouraged by how the defense have played, and it took the front end of that defense to help the back end. And if you can somehow continue that pressure to help contain him, because he has not just proven it this year over, 8 games? He's proven it now for a while, and obviously the proof's in the pudding on his statistics again over his time at Texas A&M. Somehow, some way, you're going to be able to slow him down. And I actually would go to this finally, Couz, and I'll say this real quick. Again, we want to revert back to West Virginia on the offensive side of the football. If you can't establish that run game, and I hate to keep pouncing on it, but you've got to do that, if nothing else, to keep the ball out of Wigman's hands. Because you're not going to live with just Scotty Fox throwing 4- and 5-yard patterns all day, because Houston's going to take it away. You got to run the football for your West Virginia, move the clock, and let that offense help that West Virginia defense when it comes to slowing down Wigman.
I like it. My second one is something, again, it's another repetitive, but it's whoever, and I don't know who it's going to be. It'll be different people, but whoever's covering Tanner Koziel.
Yeah.
Don't need to go over his stats again, but if you can somehow limit him, they don't have a ton of. I'm not saying that they don't have talented receivers. Their best receiver, Stephon Johnson's been out with an injury.
Mm-hmm.
They do have a receiver by the name of Amari. I think it's Amari Thomas. I'm sorry, Amari Thomas.
Yeah.
He has 30 receptions for 535 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he's no slouch. Okay. He leads the team in receiving yards, but it's not somebody that scares me necessarily. Like Chase, I don't think he's a Chase Roberts or, the guy from TCU last week. Was it McMillan? Whatever the guy that had caught 9 balls on West Virginia last week. I don't think he's that caliber, but he can beat you deep. So, but I trust our DBs, if they can continue to play the way they played last week, to limit him. But if you let him get his yards, and then Cozy will also gets his, I just don't see how you can win the game. You know what I mean? Now, we haven't even touched on Houston's run game yet. Maybe you will later. But that's another area they got to look out for. It's not what I had wrote down here, but they're more of a pro style offense. They want to establish the run game and then throw off of that. You know what I'm saying? They're not necessarily a spread you out type of offense. Yeah. So they're going to want to run the football. But I feel like West Virginia's defense will step up to that challenge. This is one reason I haven't really mentioned it yet. That's why I'm so focused on the pass game, because that's the one area where West Virginia has struggled. Houston they're not really a big play offense. They're more of a grinded out, old school style offense, right? Pro style offense. But you cannot let them get those big chunks with Koziel. Even though I didn't mention it with Thomas either.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it was Eric McAllister last week, TCU.
McAllister.
Yeah, 9 catches, 124. And we talked about that last week. That was a scary target for us and for West Virginia. And I would say the same thing about Koziel this week.
You can't shut everybody down, right? They're going to get some yards somewhere.
Yeah.
But you got to try to limit it.
Yeah, Dean Connors, running back for Houston. I'm not sure. I agree with you there. I'm not sure that's the area of concern, right? Yeah, right. I mean, I don't, and I don't anticipate Connors when you walk off the field on Saturday. If it didn't go in your favor, I don't anticipate you point necessarily to that rushing attack that does you in. Maybe it is Koziel, maybe it's Wigman, maybe it's West Virginia didn't move the football offensively. But I don't think you look back and say the Dean Connors rushing attack for Houston's what did you in, with all due respect to Dean Connors and the Houston rushing attack. I just don't think that's where it's going to go. But yeah, I completely agree with you. We've talked about it, and I just think that somehow, some way, and I went into the stats about contested catches. So I'm anxious to see how Zach Alley schemes this one. Because he is someone that obviously West Virginia is going to have to concentrate on even all the way through if it looks like he's even double or triple team. So, certainly want to keep an eye on.
All right, who's your key player for the Mountaineers?
Couz, how about this one? Michael Coates Jr.
There you go.
I was actually impressed with Michael Coates Jr. last week, Couz. I know he only had, I think it was 4 tackles, 2 solo, and 1 pass breakup or pass defended. But because he made some plays last week, he was always in the area of the football and was tested quite a bit. And it seems like Michael Coates is actually coming on the last couple of weeks. I was pretty impressed with him. And I think this is an opportunity where he's going to be contested or challenged a little bit more this week. And I think this is a chance for this secondary, whether it be a Derek Carter, who, by the way, played really good last week. So did Israel Boyce. You could always mention Fred Perry. Maybe it's going to be his assignment this week. Who knows? But I want to go with Michael Coates Jr. I think he might make a play for that West Virginia secondary this week.
Yeah, I like it. I'm going to go with one that's maybe a little obvious, but maybe not, and I'm going to say Cam Vaughn. Because
love that.
I think West Virginia established a little bit of an identity, hopefully at least, last week with the Fox to Vaughn connection. And even though I know Houston's going to be able to scheme for that, but Cam Vaughn is really talented, and I know Rich Rod said he needs to improve his route running, but the guy last week was open on about every friggin' play. At least it seemed to me.
Yeah.
Now, maybe Houston's secondary may be a little better than TCU's, so maybe he can't do that as much this week. But I really think if they can get him the football and get it to him early, and he can make a couple of plays, man, it will open up open up so many opportunities potentially if they can capitalize on it, at least in that run game, right? And maybe that's when you surprise them and bring in Curtis Jones and run the ball up the middle a couple times and get some 9, 10, 12-yard gains. Then all of a sudden, West Virginia's cooking with grease, right?
Yep.
So get it to Cam Vaughn, get it to him early. Make Houston have to pay attention, even if you just target him down the field a couple times and maybe draw a PI call or at least let them know. Just keep the defense honest, but you've got to get Cam Vaughn involved in this game, and you've got to do it early.
Yeah,
in my opinion, figure out a way to get him the football.
Yeah, I agree with you. And it's like sometimes the coaches will say, even though they weren't having success running the football, they had to run the football because you have to keep the defensive honest. And I talked about that earlier. I think even if you take shots downfield, even if they're not completed catches, you have to show Houston you're willing to do it. But I love the Cam Vaughn. I'll be really interested to see how that connection with Fox and Vaughn goes this week. But yeah, because you mentioned it again, Couz, before we get to the final score, and it's not really part of it, but yes or no, does Curtis Jones Jr. get a carry this week?
I'm going to say no.
I'm going to say no as well. But it's strange to me that Rich Rodriguez doesn't seem to be the person who would just randomly float that idea.
I think he's been working on it at practice. But I don't think I think they're only going to put him in a maybe I don't want to say emergency situation, but I don't know, man. I got a gut feeling that if they were planning on seriously using him, they wouldn't have thrown it out in a public press conference.
Yeah,
because they didn't do that with Ty Edwards necessarily. Well, they kind of did, but not. He kept saying he was a game time decision, right? And then he played.
Yeah.
And that was probably. I'm not saying that wasn't accurate because he, but. Or no, wait a minute. I'm thinking that was before he got hurt, though, wasn't it? So I don't know. I don't remember Ty Edwards' name coming up though a lot in the week before that game. Do you?
No. Part of me says there's no chance you actually give Curtis Jones Jr. a carry. The other part of me says I think it's kind of strange that now the context of that conversation was West Virginia needed somebody with a little bruise, a little physicality at that position for more of short yardage. So it does make you wonder if there's a 4th and inches or a 3rd and goal at the 1, if the opportunity presented itself. I don't necessarily think that means if it's 2nd and 6 on the plus 35 that he's going to put Jones in the football game to take carries away to run it. But boy, you're in a sad state when that's where you're looking.
Well, I mean, they did it with C.J. Donald, but at least C.J. Donaldson was an offensive player. I mean,
right. I mean, you're switching positions here. I mean, I know that there's times where teams will take 320-pound offensive linemen and let them carry the ball on 3rd and goal from the half-yard line, and I know those exist, because this would be far stretched from just taking essentially a linebacker and putting him in the backfield. But now, at the end of the day, if you're West Virginia, and it's a sad state, but you don't really have much to lose. Yeah. And so
and I'll tell you something else to be on the lookout for. And I haven't went through the roster to see who's played how many games, but we're now down to that 4-game stretch where they can play some guys who they might be planning to redshirt. So it's possible we see some new faces this week.
Yeah.
Just keep that in mind.
Very possible.
Some young guys, some freshmen, some redshirt freshmen.
Yep.
Well, not redshirt freshmen necessarily, but it could be some transfers who haven't played any and haven't used their redshirt yet, right? That are not necessarily freshmen.
Yep.
So keep an eye out for that too. That was kind of off topic, but let's go ahead and jump over to our score predictions. What you got?
Couz, am I crazy to think that West Virginia has a shot?
No, because I think they do too, but they got to play better. They got to play as good defensively as they did last week, but better offensively.
Yeah. Let me do this, Couz. Let me give you the reasons why I think West Virginia has a shot to win a football game, okay?
Okay.
Number one is I'm actually inspired by what I saw last week. I felt like West Virginia was extremely challenged by this coaching staff, and they responded. Um, I thought it would have been really easy to come back after that butt whooping in Orlando and tuck your tails. And in a pay me now world that we live in, I thought it would have been easy for a lot of players to be checked out. I thought it would have been easy for them to not really appreciate being called out. But you know what? They responded. Because you know what time it's going to be whenever the game kicks off in Houston, Texas on Saturday? 11
11
a.m.
a.m.
11 a.m. I don't know about you, but on a Saturday morning, 11 a.m., I'm probably stirring some chili or some cheese dip, maybe, having last minute coffees and getting ready for an hour until kickoff or later. I'm not really ready to play a football game. And college athletes are creatures of habit, and that typically doesn't start at 11 a.m. Couz, who did Houston beat last week?
Arizona State.
On the road against ranked Arizona State. And then guess who comes to town this week? Poor old West Virginia. Because there's a lot of reasons. There's a lot of reasons why West Virginia could win this football game. And I hope that doesn't sound crazy, but I think they're legitimate reasons. Having said that, this actually has more to do with West Virginia than it does Houston. Because everything I just said about Houston is completely true. And I'd also sprinkle in the fact that I think Houston has an outside shot, depending on Texas Tech, BYU, and Cincinnati, of winning the Big 12 or at least playing in the championship game. So they've got a lot to play for, and it would be real easy just to look past West Virginia. But it's not about Houston. Crazy enough, Couz, it's not about Houston. And I said this earlier, if West Virginia shows up like they did in Orlando, this game is over. They might as well not even make the trip. If West Virginia shows up in Houston like they played last week, because this is a football game they can win. Crazy enough, I think West Virginia hangs around a little bit, but I think Houston wins at 35-17. But
so all of that to say the West Virginia loses 35-7. It doesn't even cover the spread.
We're trying to fill time, Couz. No, I'm just kidding. Here's the thing. I actually believe everything that I said is completely true on the Houston side of thing, and everything we said. Listen, this is more about West Virginia than it is Houston, in my opinion. Because, listen, I'm going to get called out for saying it, but I don't quite know. Listen, I was more impressed last week with Houston's win against Houston, but guess what? Arizona State. But Houston with Arizona State beat Arizona State without a couple of their best players. I'm not overly impressed with Houston as a football team in totality, right?
That's fair.
It's not a knock on. Listen, I didn't make the schedule. I'm not completely sold. I think they've got a lot of good pieces. I think the defense is really good. I think Wigman is good. Their tight end is good. Having said that, I'm not completely sold on the football team. But if West Virginia shows up like they're capable of playing football and they play inspired, then yeah, I think West Virginia's got a shot. I think it says more about West Virginia's inability to score the football than it does anything else. But I think in the end, I think Houston wins a football game 35-17.
Okay, I like it. I got West Virginia. Well, first off, Houston's averaging, I was looking it up as you were talking, they're 69th in the country in scoring offense, tied for 69th, averaging 28.8 points a game. So they're not scoring a ton of points, right?
Right.
Now, West Virginia obviously is averaging less than that. I get it. But that's why I said earlier, I think this is going to be a very low scoring. I feel good about West Virginia's defense. I feel like they can keep West Virginia in the game. If they play like they did last week against an offense that's less effective, let's say, than TCU, they got a shot.
Yeah,
I think they'll keep Houston around or slightly below their season average. I think Houston scores 27 points. That being said, this Houston defense is really, really good, and West Virginia has not been able to run the football, and that makes them a sitting duck, makes Scotty Fox a sitting duck, a true freshman sitting duck quarterback on the road against a really, really good defense is not really a recipe for success. I got a really bad feeling that Fox is not going to look as good this week as he did last week, and then it won't necessarily be his fault. But I just don't think West Virginia's offense is going to be able to do much, and I got them scoring 10 points. So I got Houston winning 27-10.
Okay. And I think there's a lot of accuracy there. I think if West Virginia can somehow, I will say that I think the 35 points that I gave Houston, I do think it is going to be a little bit closer going into the fourth quarter, and then I think eventually, if West Virginia can't move the football, Houston pulls away on that.
And their defense is going to be on the field too long; they're going to get worn out.
Yeah,
that's what I think. That's kind of what happened to a degree, it happened last week, but.
Yeah. Listen, here's what it all boils down to, Couz. Are we going to be able to build any momentum from Scotty Fox in that offense from last week? Or is it just hey, that was fun. We did catch lightning in a bottle. It was nighttime in Morgantown, and everything got a little energetic for a bit. Or are we going to go right back? Right? Yeah. I mean, did West Virginia really find something there? And if West Virginia really found something there and they could spend a week kind of working the kinks a little bit more out on that, then I think it's possible that West Virginia can be in this football game a little bit longer.
Now, I mentioned I kind of misspoke earlier in the show when we first opened. I was talking about the 11 a.m. kick and that being a disadvantage for Houston. Actually, I think it's the reverse. I think it's a disadvantage for West Virginia more than it is Houston, because Houston's going to be – that's their normal time, right? West Virginia is going to be – are the ones that have to go back an hour and play a football game. So I think the time actually could potentially play into Houston's. I don't think it'll be that big of a factor at all, really, but I did want to correct that statement. You want to talk a little bit of hoops here you got a few more minutes?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's dive into some hoops here. I do want to talk about, we're not going to go game by game predictions here. There's just, too hard to do that with 31 games. It takes too long. But when you look at the totality of West Virginia's basketball schedule, Jonathan, what are you thinking as far as what is your preseason prediction as far as record for this men's basketball team?
All right, let me look here. So I think it's going to come down to, the interesting thing is I think West Virginia sets themselves up pretty good. I want to say this first. I think West Virginia sets themselves up pretty good in the non-conference schedule. If you look at who West Virginia is able to play, Pitt, Clemson, Wake Forest, Ohio State, I think it was either Xavier or Georgia. Whether it be the Big Ten, the SEC, the ACC, none of these teams are expected to have banner years in their respective conferences. So I think West Virginia was able to draw favorably. I think the tournament has been a neutral site. They get Pitt at home.
Wake Forest is in Charleston.
Wake Forest is in Charleston, which is obviously going to be a West Virginia crowd.
Ohio State is in Cleveland?
I think it is, yeah. So I think it's a favorable matchup in the sense of every bigger opponent that they play is not expected to have a great season. It's going to be and listen, you could say the same thing about West Virginia, but if at least nothing else, they're not playing Dukes and they're not playing Michigan States and so forth and so on.
Correct.
So West Virginia Cougars won 19 games last week, won 19-13, I think it was, 10-10 in the conference. So when I looked at this schedule, I thought to myself, is that kind of the playing field that we're going up against, right? I mean, it was new coach. I mean, there's a lot of similarities, really. New coach, new staff, new players. And so for me, when I looked at it, I thought to myself, could I get to 19 wins? Because I think it's going to be a little tough. Actually have West Virginia winning 17 basketball games this year.
We're pretty close.
Now, here's the thing. If everybody stays healthy and the season does kind of go where we went or where we think it could potentially go, I could see West Virginia getting up to 19. Here's kind of where I think about it. I did this last year, and it actually worked out. It been pretty good. So I decided to go back and do it again. I don't think 15. I think West Virginia wins more than 15 games. I don't think they're going to get to 20. So the question for me is, where are you between 15 and 20? West Virginia was able to get to that 19th win last year. I think they're going to be a little bit lower. I think West Virginia wins 17 games this year. That's going to put them, I think, at 8 in the conference, I believe. So I think West Virginia wins about 17 games.
Well, I could almost just put you on repeat and change the number a little bit and be done. But when you look at the way the schedule lines up, I think they're going. They obviously, I think they'll win all the games they're supposed to win as far as the mid majors or the low majors that they're playing.
I agree.
I think they're probably going to drop a couple of those Power 4 non-conference games.
Okay, do you?
I do. Yeah. Not all of them. I think they'll win a couple, drop a couple.
It's pretty much split. I agree with
that. I just don't think. And in the Big 12, and I'm going to give the record, and then I'll give my reasoning afterwards. And I've got them going 8-10 in the Big 12.
Okay,
which is not great. Probably won't get them in the tournament. But here's my reasoning. When you talk about last year, and that's what I kind of had in my head. I looked at last year's team, how they did, and I'm probably not fair to do that because it's a different season. The opponents are different. But I don't know what else we got to go on at this point.
Right, I agree.
So that's what I did. I looked at the schedule. And then I looked at the rosters, and I looked at West Virginia's roster this year. And even though I love some of the guys they got on this roster, last year's team brought over some pretty good players. Mm-hmm. Remember, Sincere Harris and Amani Hansberry both were pretty highly recruited guys to Illinois, okay? With Power 4 experience, okay? You had Tucker DeVries coming over, who was a Power 4 level player who had only been playing at the mid-major level because of his dad probably. And then you had, you had Javon Small, who we didn't know he was going to be as good as he ended up being.
Correct.
But he had Power 4 experience at Oklahoma State. You had 4 players at least, and I think there was another 1 or 2 guys with Joe Yesufu had played Power 4 ball. You had 4 or 5 guys on that roster who had played Power 4 basketball, and another one who was good enough to play that. None of these – you only got a couple guys on this roster that – I look at and say, I know that guy can play at the Power 4 level. You know what I'm saying? And I mean, I love Honor Huff to death, and I think he's going to be a shooter, but God, he's small, Jonathan. He's a small guy.
He's small.
Yeah. There are going to be games where he's going to be in major mismatches on the defensive end of the court.
Yeah.
Okay. Trayson Eaglestaff, I love him. He's a shooter, scorer. He's skinny, man. He's going to get pushed around some, I'm afraid, this year on the defensive end of the floor. When you look at the physicality of the Big 12, I just think there are a few games that West Virginia is probably not going to be able to physically match up with their opponents. That's why I haven't gone 8-12 in the conference. Now, maybe they'll surprise me. Look, I think I predicted last year's team to win 15 games, and they turned around and won 19. So what the heck do I know? But, I'm just giving you my gut feeling here.
I think West Virginia Couz as a whole will be a better team this year. And I think a lot of that comes from Ross Hodge. Listen, I'm not throwing shade at DeVries.
But I don't think they have a Javon Small on the roster. That's my opinion.
I don't think that they do, but I think as a totality, I mean, you look Couz last year, West Virginia was bringing KJ Tanner off the bench. Okay. West Virginia this year is going to be able to bring Amir Jenkins off the bench.
That's an upgrade.
That's an upgrade.
In my opinion.
As good as Amani Hansberry was, he didn't play that position the way Harlan Obioha is going to play that position this year for West Virginia.
That's fair.
So I don't disagree with you, but I think just for every concern, there's been an upgrade. I really believe that. And then I think you've got to factor in, and I've preached this forever, Couz, the ability to bring a Brennan Lorient and a Jasper Floyd with Ross Hodge. I think that is going to be – now, I'm giving you all the reasons why I think there's a little bit better expectations. But, again, I stopped short of saying they'd win 20 games. So,
you had them winning one less than I did.
Correct, yeah. I had to get 17 wins. And so –
I got about 18.
But this is where I'm saying I think if West Virginia can find themselves a little bit. Now, I will go this. I did a little bit more study on the schedule. And it's easy to say it's Big 12, it's tough night in, night out. And that's true. Because when you look at it, have you noticed where West Virginia starts the Big 12 slate at?
Iowa State,
They go Iowa State.
Kansas.
Well, they got Cincinnati at home, Kansas at home, at Houston. There's a game against Colorado at home, sandwiched in, and then they go to Arizona State, which is not expected to have, but that's travel, at Arizona, and then Kansas State Baylor. It's tough.
It's a gauntlet, man.
It is. It really
with a new
is.
staff and a new roster.
It is. Listen,
18 might even be. I might be being generous. I mean, I don't mean to sound mean, but I mean, when there's so many question marks, Jonathan. I mean, and that scrimmage game didn't tell me a thing.
It didn't tell you. It didn't, and I think it's because they had to be one very, very, very vanilla.
And they were going against lesser competition.
Lesser competition, that always factors in. And I think if you noticed as well, too, they were really maybe working some rotations that I don't know that you'll necessarily see throughout the season. Mm-hmm. It was more of just let's kind of see what we have here. I think what it does for West Virginia is it really puts emphasis on the non-conference slate. You've got to win those games. I mean, if you're playing Clemson or if you're playing, at Ohio State, or if you get Wake Forest in Charleston, those are pretty evenly compared programs this season, and so you can't drop a Pitt game at home because you can't go to Charleston and let Wake Forest beat you. You probably could live with traveling to Cleveland and losing to Ohio State, but then you can't lose to both games in the November Thanksgiving tournament. The out of kind, you certainly can't drop a Lehigh or a Mount St. Mary's or Mercyhurst, Coppin State, go on and go on. So, yeah, I mean, listen, we're excited. I think there's some players, but I think because I hate to bring football into it, but I think if we've learned anything from this season on the football side of things is it's temper our expectations a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that's where I'm at. That's probably one reason I'm so pessimistic.
Yeah, and listen to me. If anybody follows me on social media, they know my favorite saying, especially when it comes to basketball, is I don't want to get ahead of myself.
Right.
I'm always joking about that, but there's a little tongue in cheek there. But I think what's happened is we're being cautious. And I understand that.
But again, you got them at 17 and 13, and I got them at 18 and 12. So it's not like we're picking them to be the doormat of the conference.
Right.
We're picking them to be about a middle of the. They were picked preseason 11th. If they finish 8 and 10, Jonathan, they'll probably finish higher than that.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, and I don't have this in front of me, but as I was doing some study on this today at work, sorry to my employer, I was reading an article on ESPN.com, and it was pretty interesting. It ranked Couz Big 12 teams from title contenders, mm-hmm. legit title contenders, I think it said, to could win a game in the NCAA tournament to bubble watch. Because there was like 10 Big 12 teams listed from could win a game, bubble watch, to serious title contenders. This is an absolute gauntlet. I think if you can get to 17, maybe win you an 18th game in the Big 12 tournament, somewhere along the lines, you pick up a big win, maybe against a Kansas or a Houston or a resume builder. Comparing again to last year, you don't necessarily have that Gonzaga that you can hang your hat on this year.
And they still didn't get in the tournament with that.
And I was going to say, if West Virginia wins 17 games, I think somebody owes us about 3 off of last year. So 17 becomes 20, in my opinion.
Well, they should, but you know how that goes. I'm a firm believer that if you don't win 20 games, your chances of getting in the tournament are slim.
20 is the magic number, which is why I think when you and I do these every year, we always start at 20 is the ceiling, right? That's kind of the max because that's because that gets you in. That's a target number. That 20 looks a lot better than 19. And so the question's going to be is can West Virginia get there? And it's just you have to hold serve in the non-conference and hope that you can come up with a little bit of recipe to get you some resume builders. And See what happens.
Yeah.
Now, the hope is going to be that somebody like a Wake Forest, a Clemson, a Pitt, Ohio State, somebody like that has that type of season later on down the road where they outperform what their expectations are.
And you've beat them earlier in the year.
And you've beat them early in the year.
Yep.
And so that's why every game matters. And then if you can add in look at Mount St. Mary's. I think Mount St. Mary's ended up winning, 12 of their last 14 games last year and making the NCAA tournament, and which is another reason why West Virginia probably should have got in. But, you have to hope that some of those teams like a Campbell or somebody can potentially play their way in as well through the conference. So a lot to happen, but some excitement, yes. Some cautiously optimism for me, just based off of the ending of last year and the way the football season has went.
Yeah. Yep. Same here, man. Like I said, you got them at 17-13. I got them at 18-12 or 18-13, whatever. So you got them at 17 wins. There might be one extra game in there that's not on the schedule because of the way that tournament turns out. But
correct.
They're going to be playing about 30, 31 games somewhere in there.
Having said that, Couz, I'm really excited for basketball season to start.
I'm excited. I might actually be more excited this year than I was last year.
Yeah.
Or not.
Yeah. We talked about that a little bit, I think, off air last week. It's just, the way football seasons kind of win and the way, you have to wait to get back. Like West Virginia played really well last week on the football side, and you got to wait a week to see what happens. I like the fact that you could do a Sunday, Tuesday, a Saturday, Monday or something. And so gives you an opportunity to see them a little bit more and get back out there.
Yep. And I'm going to try. I didn't get to any games last year, but I'm going to try to get to one this year, at least one, maybe two.
Maybe we need to have a Couz's Corner meet up in Charleston on a Saturday night against Wake Forest or something.
I'm hoping to get to that one, but I'm holding out to see. There might be a family thing going on that weekend, apparently. So I'm waiting to hear what the boss has to say. Well, I got the side eye when I talked about maybe going somewhere that weekend. So
we have a big Couz's Corner. We need to put comments in this. Who can meet us in Charleston so we could say we've got something bigger planned.
There you go. All right, brother. Listen, everybody, thank you for tuning in. This has been episode 49 of the Golden Blue Breakdown Show. We thank you for it. Man, one show away from 50, Jonathan. Hard to believe, isn't it?
Hard to believe.
We're getting old, man. We're almost 50.
Yeah.
But we thank everybody for tuning in to the show. Please please subscribe, please do all that stuff. Please go check us out at wvsportschat.com. Subscribe to the newsletter over there. Get it in your inbox every day. Keep up with what's going on with the West Virginia Mountaineers sports in written form. And we will have a representative covering the women's team for us this year.
Yep.
Shauna Rose is going to be covering the women's basketball team for WV Sports Chat. So be on the lookout for a lot of content there. We are proud to cover the women because we expect them to also have a really good year. They were by the way, they were picked number 5 in the preseason poll.
Yeah.
So
won their exhibition against Fairmont State, same night as WVU Wheeling,
and they beat Virginia Tech in a closed door scrimmage. So anyway, thanks for tuning into the show. God bless you. Have a top shelf day. Q Country Roads.